Some places in the world live slower than the clock. Some move to the rhythm of stone and memory and footsteps older than nations. Here in the mountains of Sardinia, a shepherd rises with the sun and walks paths he has walked for 97 years. His body bends, but does not break. His breath softens, but does not fade. And every dawn, the world feels familiar beneath his feet. This is where time forgets to hurry, where the mountain remembers every soul who has climbed it, where men don't just survive a century, they inhabit it, breath by purposeful breath. In a village called Perdas de Fogo, the longest-lived family ever recorded wakes up to breakfast. 4 generations crowd around one wooden table, moving in a rhythm practiced across 100 years. They pass bread still warm from the oven. They pour olive oil the color of liquid gold. They argue about whose turn it is to stir the soup, and the laughter shakes the walls. You can smell the sourdough, the coffee, the herbs drying by the window. You can hear stories layered over stories, voices weaving through each other like threads in ancient cloth. Here, a great-great-grandmother teaches her namesake how to knead dough. Here, age is not something to escape or hide in separate rooms. It is something to share at the table, to celebrate, to pass down like the recipes and the songs and the unshakable knowledge that you belong. On a quiet hillside, a woman who has lived 102 years lifts a glass of deep red Cannonau wine. She has survived war, fascism, famine, sorrow, storms, and heartbreak. She has buried a husband, a son, and more friends than she can count. But she has never missed a harvest. She smiles at the glass as if remembering something sweet, something private, and whispers, just one sip for the heart, for the memory. And in that single gesture lives a wisdom that statistics cannot measure, a secret that science is only beginning to understand. This is Sardinia, the island where time bends, where men routinely live past 100 at rates found nowhere else on earth, where families grow old together, not apart, where aging is not feared or hidden or softened with euphemisms, but embraced like an old friend who has finally arrived. This is the second blue zone we're exploring, a place where people do not simply avoid death, they outgrow it. But what secrets does this ancient island hold? What do these mountain people know that the rest of the world has forgotten? Over the next hour, we're going to discover not just how they live long, but how they live well. And if you want to join us on this journey through all the blue zones and unlock the secrets of longevity, hit that subscribe button now, because what we're about to uncover could add decades to your life and life to your decades. Sardinia is not gentle land. It was not built, it was carved, shaped by wind that has blown for 10,000 years, sharpened by stone that remembers every footfall, softened only by time, and even then, barely. These mountains have kept the world out and kept the people in. And in that isolation, something miraculous happened. Isolation became protection, hardship became resilience, and the very brutality of the landscape forged a people who refused to break. This is the Barbagia region, heart of Sardinia's interior, where the Gennargentu Mountains rise like ancient sentinels. The terrain here is steep, unforgiving, breathtaking in its raw beauty. Limestone cliffs drop into valleys where wild boar still roam. Granite peaks catch the first light of dawn and hold it like a prayer. Cork oaks twist from rocky soil that seems incapable of sustaining life, yet somehow does abundantly, defiantly. Here, the mountain is not scenery. It is not something you visit on weekends or photograph from a distance. The mountain is companion, mentor, taskmaster. It is the first and last teacher a Sardinian ever knows. Every climb up its slopes shapes the legs, builds the calves, strengthens the heart. Every ridge navigated shapes the lungs, expands capacity, teaches breath control. Every dawn spent walking its paths shapes the spirit, teaches patience, instills a rhythm that pulses through a lifetime. For centuries, these mountains were fortress walls. Invaders came to Sardinia's coasts, Phoenicians, Romans, Arabs, Spanish, but few ventured inland. The journey was too difficult, the reward too uncertain, so the mountain people remained untouched, their bloodlines unbroken, their traditions preserved in amber. What the rest of the world saw as isolation, they knew as sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, they learned to live differently, to move constantly, to eat simply, to need each other, to endure. Even within Sardinia, there is a sacred center, a handful of villages where longevity reaches levels that defy medical explanation. Perdas de Fogo, Villagrande Strizeli, Arzana, Talana, villages with more centenarians than some countries have in their entire populations. Places where living past 100 is not remarkable, it is expected. The statistics are staggering. These villages have 10 times more centenarians per capita than the United States. 10 times. But here's what makes Sardinia truly unique, truly unprecedented in longevity research. The men outlive the women. Everywhere else on Earth, women dominate the centenarian population by ratios of 4 or 5 to 1. But here, in these specific mountain villages, the ratio reverses. Men live as long as women, sometimes longer. Scientists believe they've found part of the answer in genetics. A marker called M26, carried by a significant portion of Sardinian men, appears linked to exceptional longevity. It's a genetic signature of ancient isolation, preserved because these populations remained so separate from the rest of the world for so long. The shepherds, particularly, carry this marker. Men who spent their entire lives walking mountains, breathing clean air, eating simple food, living with purpose. But genetics alone cannot explain it. Genes load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. And the lifestyle here, forged by geography, refined by necessity, perfected over millennia, creates conditions where the human body can thrive far beyond what modern medicine once thought possible. These villages hold secrets, and those secrets begin with the land itself. The Mediterranean climate here is not just pleasant, it is perfectly calibrated for human longevity. Mild winters mean year-round outdoor activity. No hibernating indoors for months. No vitamin D deficiency from lack of sunlight. No seasonal depression keeping people sedentary and isolated. The people here move every single day, not because they're disciplined, but because the weather allows it, encourages it, makes staying inside feel like a waste. Summers are warm but not oppressive, especially at elevation. The heat encourages afternoon rest, the sacred riposo that allows the body to recover, cortisol levels to drop, stress to dissipate before it can accumulate into disease. Then evening comes cool and inviting, perfect for the passeggiata, the communal evening walk where the entire village moves together through the streets. The seasons dictate the rhythm of life in ways that modern civilization has forgotten. Spring means planting, bending, digging, carrying. Summer means tending, walking between rows, pruning, watering. Autumn means harvest, climbing ladders, picking fruit, processing food. Winter means maintenance, chopping wood, repairing tools, preparing for the cycle to begin again. The agricultural calendar becomes the structure of life itself, providing purpose in every season, activity in every month, meaning in every day, and the terrain enforces it all. You cannot be lazy on a mountain. You cannot drive everywhere when roads are few and steep. You cannot order takeout when the nearest restaurant is 5 miles away on foot. The land itself, steep, rocky, demanding, becomes a daily gym, a constant teacher, a relentless enforcer of the movement that keeps bodies young long past the age when they should be failing. For 3,000 years, Sardinian men have walked these mountains with their flocks. The tradition predates written history. It runs deeper than memory, flows through bloodlines like an ancient current. This is not a job. It is an identity, a calling, a way of being in the world that shapes everything: body, mind, spirit. The day begins before the sun. A shepherd rises in darkness, drinks bitter espresso, eats a piece of yesterday's bread with pecorino cheese. Then he walks 5 miles, 7 miles, 10 miles, following trails his grandfather followed, that his grandfather's grandfather followed, trails worn into stone by centuries of footsteps and hoofbeats. The flock moves slow, stopping to graze, and the shepherd moves with them, not rushing, not idling, just walking, always walking. The rhythm is hypnotic. Walk, tend, watch, repeat. There is no gym workout more effective than this constant moderate activity on uneven terrain, sustained for hours, done daily for decades. The legs stay strong, the heart stays efficient, the lungs stay clear. Balance remains sharp because the ground is never flat, never predictable. Bones stay dense because weight-bearing activity under the open sky floods the body with vitamin D and signals the skeleton to remain fortified. But it is not just physical. Shepherding is meditation without knowing it. Hours of solitude under an endless sky. Time to think, to remember, to simply be. No screens, no notifications, no artificial urgency, just wind and stone and the soft bleating of sheep and thoughts that stretch out long and slow like the shadows at day's end. Studies show that this combination, physical activity plus contemplative solitude, reduces stress hormones more effectively than almost any intervention modern medicine can offer. Yet the shepherd is never truly alone. He returns to the village every evening. He sits in the piazza with other men who understand his life because they live it too. He is part of a community, bound by shared experience, mutual respect, unspoken understanding, solitude balanced with belonging, activity balanced with rest. It is a life of profound balance. Antonio Todi lived this life for more than a century. When journalists asked him when he was the oldest man in the world, at 112 years, what his secret was, he answered with characteristic Sardinian brevity: work, wine, and not worrying too much. Simple truths from a man who never hurried, never quit, never pretended life needed to be more complicated than it was. He shepherded until age 100. Then he sat in the piazza and told stories. Then he died peacefully, surrounded by family, having lived every single one of his days with purpose. In Sardinia, you don't learn to be a shepherd from a book. You learn by walking, by following, by absorbing knowledge through your feet and your lungs and your bones until you know the mountain not with your mind, but with your body. A boy starts young, maybe 8 or 9 years old. He walks beside his grandfather, or his father, or his uncle. At first, he cannot keep up. His legs are short. He gets tired, but he keeps walking, day after day, until the walking becomes natural, until he stops thinking about his feet and starts noticing other things: which plants the sheep prefer, where water pools after rain, how to read the sky for coming weather, how to move through a flock without startling them. The old man does not lecture, he shows. He corrects gently. He walks in a way that teaches just by being observed. And slowly, over years, the knowledge passes from one generation to the next, not through words, but through rhythm, through muscle memory, through lived experience. Even when a shepherd can no longer make the long daily walks, when age finally slows his legs, weakens his stamina, he still teaches. He sits in the village and answers questions. He remembers when the winter of 1956 killed half the flocks and how they recovered. He knows which family sheep produce the best milk for cheese. He carries in his mind 1,000 details that cannot be written down, only witnessed and absorbed and passed on. This is how tradition survives, not preserved in museums, but embodied in practice, not written in books, but carried in the body. A shepherd who no longer climbs still belongs. He still matters. He still has purpose, and that purpose, being needed, being consulted, being remembered, keeps him alive far longer than biology alone would predict. But the shepherds are disappearing. The villages are emptying. This is the uncomfortable truth that haunts every conversation about Sardinia's blue zone. Over the past 50 years, thousands of mountain homes have been abandoned. Young people leave for Cagliari, for Rome, for Milan, for Germany. They leave for jobs that pay more and demand less. They leave for cities with universities and hospitals and shopping centers. They leave for lives that seem bigger, brighter, more modern than the ancient rhythms of the village. The shops close because there are not enough customers. The schools close because there are not enough children. The average age in some of these villages now exceeds 60 years. And the average age of the shepherd still working? 68. There are fewer apprentices each year. Fewer young men willing to wake before dawn and walk 10 miles through mountain cold to watch sheep graze. What dies when the last shepherd retires? Not just a profession, not just a set of skills, but an entire way of being that created exceptional longevity, the natural movement, the purposeful solitude, the deep connection to land and animal and seasons. When that goes, what remains? Step into Perdas de Fogu on any morning and you will see how a village is supposed to work, how it worked for thousands of years before modernity convinced us that isolation was freedom and convenience was progress. The elders are not hidden in nursing homes or kept in separate wings of the family house. They are at the center. They are the heart of everything. The village square, the piazza, is where you will find them. Old men gather at small tables, playing cards with the intensity of generals planning battles. They argue about politics, about soccer, about whose grandson is the most talented. They mock each other with affection sharpened by 60 years of friendship. Their laughter carries across the cobblestones. Nearby, old women sit in doorways, shelling fava beans into wooden bowls, their hands moving with the automatic precision of a lifetime's practice. They talk while they work about whose daughter is getting married, about the quality of this year's tomatoes, about the proper way to make pain carousel, the traditional flatbread thin as paper. Children weave between them, chasing balls, asking questions, leaning against their grandmother's knees. The generations exist not in parallel, but woven together like threads in cloth. Walk through a typical day. Morning begins at the bar with espresso and fresh pastries. Men read the newspaper aloud, discussing national news that seems distant and unimportant compared to the gossip of who saw whom walking where yesterday. By late morning, the square fills with market vendors selling vegetables, cheese, bread. People shop slowly, stopping to chat, to catch up, to connect. Afternoon brings the riposo. Shutters close. The village grows quiet. People rest, then wake refreshed. By 4 o'clock, activity resumes. Card games reconvene in the piazza. Women return to their doorways. Teenagers claim corners to talk and flirt. Evening is for the passeggiata, the communal stroll. Entire families walk together through the streets. Everyone greets everyone. You cannot walk 1 block without stopping for 3 conversations. This is not exercise. This is social architecture. The physical design of the village, narrow streets, central square, everything within walking distance enforces connection. You cannot be anonymous here. You cannot disappear. And that is the point. If Sardinian men are the visible face of longevity, Sardinian women are its backbone. They are the ones who hold everything together, who preserve everything essential, who carry culture forward through the simple, profound act of daily life. These women occupy multiple roles simultaneously. They are bread makers, rising before dawn to knead dough that will feed 3 generations. They are gardeners, tending plots where tomatoes and zucchini and herbs grow with abundance that seems miraculous in rocky soil. They are storytellers, passing down family histories and village legends through tales told while stirring soup or mending clothes. They are healers, knowing which plants ease coughs, which teas calm anxious hearts, which poultices draw out infection. Maria, 91 years old, has baked bread every single day for 85 years. Every single day. Her hands know the feel of properly kneaded dough without thinking. Her nose knows when the oven reaches the right temperature. She does not measure anything. She measures with her hands, with her eyes, with knowledge that lives in her body. When you eat her bread, you taste tradition itself. Francesca, 87, knows 200 plant medicines. She walks the mountainside gathering herbs the way her grandmother taught her, the way her grandmother's grandmother taught before that. Chamomile for sleep, rosemary for memory, fennel for digestion, myrtle for lung troubles. She does not write anything down. She does not need to. The knowledge lives in her fingers, in her memory, in the way she can identify plants by smell alone. And there is Julia, 93, who still teaches traditional Sardinian weaving to anyone willing to learn, though fewer young women come each year. Her fingers fly across the loom with speed that belies her age. The patterns she creates are centuries old, complex beyond description, beautiful in ways that mass production can never match. These women's longevity secrets differ from the men's. They walk less, no 10-mile shepherding routes, but they never stop moving, kneading, stirring, bending, lifting, carrying, sweeping. Their activity is constant but lower intensity, and their social networks are different, deeper, more intimate, more consistent. Women here talk to each other daily. They share burdens. They celebrate joys together. They create webs of connection that science now recognizes as among the most powerful protectors against disease and decline. The gender roles here are traditional, yes, but they are complementary, not competitive. Men and women occupy different spheres, perform different functions, but they need each other. They respect each other. The culture values both, relies on both, celebrates both, and this balance, this recognition that men and women both matter, both contribute, both deserve honor, creates a social structure strong enough to support exceptional longevity for everyone. In America, we celebrate the individual who lives to 100. We write articles about their personal habits, their quirky behaviors, their genetic luck. We treat longevity as a personal achievement, an individual victory over mortality. In Sardinia, they see it differently. Longevity here is communal. It is collective. It is something a village does together, not something one person accomplishes alone. The traditional greeting here is a Kent honest to your 100 years. Not good morning, not how are you, but may you live 100 years. It is both blessing and expectation. The culture assumes you will grow old, prepares for it, celebrates it. When someone turns 100, the entire village throws a party. Not just family, everyone. The piazza fills with tables. Food appears from every household. Wine flows. Music plays. Children dance with centenarians. The celebration lasts hours, sometimes until dawn, because this is not one person's victory. This is the village's victory. This is proof that their way of life works. The support systems here are not government programs or social services. They are built into the fabric of daily life. Neighbors check on each other every single day. If you don't see someone's shutters open by 9 in the morning, you knock, you ask, you make sure they're okay. Meals are shared across households. If you make soup, you make enough for the widow next door. If you bake bread, you share with the old man who can no longer reach his oven. Multi-generational homes are the default, not the exception. Grandparents live with adult children and grandchildren, sometimes great-grandchildren. No elder lives alone by cultural design. There are no nursing homes in these villages, no assisted living facilities. When you grow old, you stay in the heart of the family. You stay needed. You stay relevant. You stay alive. The science supports what the culture already knows. Loneliness kills. Literally. Studies show that chronic social isolation is as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases mortality risk by 50%. It accelerates cognitive decline, weakens immune function, raises blood pressure, triggers inflammation. Being alone is dangerous. But being connected deeply, consistently, meaningfully connected protects. Regular social contact reduces cortisol. Being needed gives purpose. Constant conversation keeps the mind sharp. Having people who will help if you fall, who will bring food if you're sick, who will notice if something is wrong. This network reduces the daily stress that ages us. Modern societies have forgotten this. We have built cities where you can live next to someone for 10 years and never learn their name, where families scatter across continents, where old people die alone and nobody notices for days. Sardinia remembers, and Sardinia survives. A researcher named Dan Buettner spent years searching the world for places where people lived longest, not just survived longest, but thrived longest, where people reached 90, 100, even 110 years while still walking, still thinking, still contributing, still laughing. He found 5 such places, 5 blue zones, and across all of them, Okinawa, Nicoya, Icaria, Loma Linda, and here in Sardinia he discovered 9 shared habits, 9 patterns that repeated, regardless of culture, regardless of language, regardless of religion or politics or history. He called them the Power 9. But here's what makes them remarkable. The people living these principles don't think about them. They don't optimize or track or measure. They don't read articles about longevity or listen to podcasts about biohacking. They simply live. The 9 habits are woven so deeply into daily life that they're invisible, automatic, as natural as breathing. In Sardinia, these principles take unique forms. The movement looks different here than in Okinawa. The purpose manifests differently than in Costa Rica. The community bonds carry Sardinian fingerprints, rough, weathered, unbreakable. These aren't life hacks or productivity tricks or wellness trends that will be forgotten next year. These are ancient patterns of human thriving, tested across thousands of years, proven across millions of lives. And here's the promise. You can apply them, not by moving to Sardinia or abandoning modernity or pretending the last century of progress never happened, but by understanding what these 9 principles actually do, how they work, why they matter, what they protect against, and then building your own version, your own blue zone, wherever you happen to live. So let's discover them one by one, secret by secret, starting with the most fundamental of all, the way Sardinians move through the world. There are no gyms in these mountain villages, no fitness centers with rows of treadmills and weight machines, no yoga studios or CrossFit boxes or spinning classes. The Centenarians here have never done a workout in their lives, and yet their bodies, even at 90, even at 100, remain stronger, more flexible, more functional than most 60-year-olds in developed countries. The secret is that movement here is not exercise, it is life itself. Every morning, someone walks 2 miles to the market. The path is steep, winding up and down mountainside. The return trip means carrying bags of vegetables, bread, cheese. No one drives this distance. The trip takes 40 minutes. The legs work, the heart pumps, the lungs expand. But it doesn't feel like a workout. It feels like Tuesday. Gardens require constant tending, squatting to pull weeds, bending to harvest tomatoes, carrying watering cans, digging with hand tools because the plots are small and terraced and machines can't reach them. An hour in the garden is an hour of functional movement, strengthening legs, core, shoulders, hands, but it feels like meditation, like therapy, like connection to something green and growing. Homes here are vertical, 2 stories, 3 stories, built into hillsides, bedrooms upstairs, kitchen downstairs. Every trip to the bathroom means climbing stairs 20 times a day, 30 times. The stair climbing alone builds cardiovascular capacity and bone density more effectively than most prescribed exercise programs. And food preparation is still done by hand. Kneading bread dough for 10 minutes works the arms and shoulders. Grinding nuts with a mortar and pestle. Stirring polenta continuously for 40 minutes. These movements seem quaint, inefficient, outdated. They are also perfect low-intensity strength training, repeated daily, sustained for a lifetime. The science is clear. Constant moderate activity beats occasional intense exercise. The body responds better to frequent, varied, low-level movement than to sedentary hours punctuated by gym sessions. But if you want to understand the pinnacle of Sardinian movement, you have to understand the shepherds. These men walk 5 to 10 miles every single day, not on flat pavement, on steep, rocky, uneven terrain that requires constant balance adjustments, constant engagement of stabilizer muscles, constant awareness. Incline walking does something remarkable to the human body. It builds bone density more effectively than running on flat ground because the impact is gentler but the muscular demand is higher. It strengthens the cardiovascular system without the joint damage of high-impact exercise. It forces the body to pump blood uphill against gravity, training the heart to work efficiently, and the uneven terrain, rocks, roots, loose stones, means the shepherd never takes 2 identical steps. His feet constantly adapt, his ankles constantly adjust, his core constantly stabilizes. This builds the kind of balance and coordination that prevents falls in old age, the kind of proprioception that keeps 90-year-olds steady on their feet when their peers are using walkers. The intensity is moderate. A shepherd doesn't sprint. He walks at a pace that allows conversation that can be sustained for hours, that never leaves him breathless. This is Zone 2 cardio. In modern fitness terms, the intensity that builds endurance, burns fat, and can be maintained almost indefinitely. But there's also a mind-body dimension. Walking for hours in silence or near silence is a form of meditation. The repetitive motion quiets the mind. The natural surroundings reduce stress. Studies show that this combination rhythmic movement in nature lowers cortisol more effectively than almost any intervention. Meet Giovanni, 92 years old, still shepherding 3 days a week. His posture is straight, his step is sure, his mind is clear. He has never lifted a weight, never run a mile for its own sake, never tracked his heart rate. He just walks, and walks, and walks, and somehow, impossibly, his body still works. There is no word for retirement in the traditional Sardinian dialect, not because they lack vocabulary, but because the concept itself is foreign, absurd. Why would you stop working? Why would you stop contributing? Why would you declare yourself finished while you still have breath? Sardinians don't retire. They shift. They evolve. They move from one form of contribution to another, but they never stop being useful, never stop mattering, never stop having a reason to wake up in the morning. In your 70s, you might still tend the full garden, still make cheese, still climb the hills to gather wild greens. You teach grandchildren to recognize herbs, to prune grapevines, to read weather in the clouds. You are active advisor in family decisions, keeper of family history, living bridge between generations. In your 80s, the work becomes lighter but not optional. You tend a smaller garden now. You sit while you shell beans instead of standing. You offer wisdom instead of labor. You tell stories that preserve culture, that teach values, that help younger generations understand where they come from. You attend every important family gathering, every christening, every confirmation, every wedding. Your presence matters. Your blessing matters. You matter. In your 90s, you might tend one tomato plant, water one herb box, but you still do it. You still have work. You hold great-grandchildren while their parents cook. You answer questions about the old days. You sit in the piazza and observe, comment, participate in the daily life of the village. Even at 100, you are not decoration. You are oracle, witness, proof that life can be long and good. Young couples come to you for advice. Children compete to sit beside you. When you speak, people listen, not from obligation, but from genuine respect earned across a century of contribution. This is purpose, not abstract philosophy, not something you find on a vision board, but practical, daily, essential usefulness, being needed, being wanted, being part of something larger than yourself. The science on this is overwhelming. Studies across multiple countries, tracking hundreds of thousands of people, show the same pattern. Having a clear sense of purpose reduces mortality risk by up to 30%. 30%. That rivals the protective effect of not smoking. Purpose protects cognitive function. People with strong sense of meaning are half as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Their brains remain sharper, more resilient, more resistant to the plaques and tangles that cause dementia. Why? Because purpose keeps the mind engaged, challenges it, exercises it, uses it in ways that scrolling social media or watching television simply cannot. Purpose also reduces inflammation. Measurable biological inflammation that drives heart disease, cancer, diabetes. People with high purpose show lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. Their immune systems function better. Their bodies age slower at the cellular level. In Sardinia, you see this lived out daily. There's Paolo, 95, still tending the vineyard his grandfather planted in 1891. Every morning, he walks the rows, checking leaves, pruning where needed. Is the work necessary? Not really. His sons manage the vineyard now. But Paolo still goes, still contributes, still matters. There's Antonella, 88, who teaches traditional lace making to anyone patient enough to learn. Only 2 students this year, but she teaches them anyway, preserving patterns her mother taught her 70 years ago. There's the Centenarian, who attends every family christening, sometimes 3 generations deep now. He cannot do much, but he can be present, he can bless, he can witness, and that is enough. Stress exists in Sardinia. Of course it does. Animals die, crops fail, children disappoint, bodies hurt, money runs short, hearts break. The Sardinians are not immune to life's inevitable difficulties, life's relentless pressures, but stress here does not accumulate, does not compound, does not build day after day into the chronic, grinding, inescapable burden that kills millions of people in developed countries. Why? Because Sardinians have built into every single day multiple rituals for stress release. The afternoon riposo is sacred. From 1 to 4, the village quiets, shops close, work stops, people rest, some sleep, some sit in cool rooms reading or talking quietly. Some simply exist without agenda, without urgency, without the need to be productive. The riposo is not laziness. It is strategic recovery. The body's stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline drop during these hours, blood pressure lowers, the nervous system shifts from sympathetic to parasympathetic, fight or flight becomes rest and digest. Evening brings the passeggiata, the communal stroll. After dinner, the entire village walks, not for exercise, for connection, for conversation, for the simple pleasure of moving together through streets you've walked 10,000 times before. The physical movement helps metabolize the day's stress. The social connection provides emotional release. Problems shared or problems halved. Sunday meals last 3 hours. Minimum. Multiple courses served slowly. Wine poured generously but sipped throughout. Conversation flowing between bites. Laughter punctuating stories. Time becomes elastic, abundant. Something to savor rather than something to hoard. These meals are stress relief disguised as family obligation. And then there's wine time with friends. Not drinking to forget. Not drinking alone, but gathering with the same 4 or 5 men you've known for 50 years, sharing a bottle, talking about nothing and everything, letting the ritual of companionship do its quiet work. These are not conscious stress management techniques. They are just how life works here, but they create natural pressure valves, daily opportunities for the body to reset, the mind to clear, the heart to unclench. There is a phrase you hear constantly in Sardinia, "Che fretta che," what's the hurry? It is not just expression, it is philosophy, it is worldview, it is fundamental approach to time itself. In modern societies, time is scarce, finite, something always running out. We rush through meals. We multitask conversations. We check phones during family dinners. We treat efficiency as virtue and slowness as waste. This constant hurrying does measurable damage. Chronic stress shortens telomeres, the protective caps on our chromosomes, accelerating aging at the cellular level. Sardinians treat time as abundant. They sit for meals that would make an American itchy with impatience. They have conversations that meander through topics without destination or deadline. They work at a pace that gets things done, but never at the cost of enjoyment. They integrate work and life rather than separating them into adversarial camps requiring balance. This slower pace is not laziness. It is wisdom. It is recognition that life does not need to be rushed to have meaning. That value is not measured in productivity. That some of the most important moments, a shared laugh, a good conversation, a sunset appreciated, cannot be scheduled or optimized or made efficient. Research shows this approach works. People in slower-paced cultures have lower rates of heart disease, lower rates of depression, longer lifespans. Their bodies are not constantly bathed in stress hormones. Their minds are not perpetually anxious. They move through life at human speed. And somehow, paradoxically, they get more living done. Americans eat until plates are empty, until belts need loosening, until we feel stuffed, uncomfortable, regretful. We were taught to clean our plates, to not waste food, to eat everything served. We have lost the ability to hear our bodies saying, enough. Sardinians eat until they are no longer hungry, not until they are full, not until they are stuffed, just until the edge of hunger softens, until the body signals satisfaction, until eating more would tip from pleasure into discomfort. They stop at about 80% of capacity. This is not conscious calorie restriction. They don't count or measure or track. They just eat slowly enough that their brains can register satiation before their stomachs are overwhelmed. A typical Sardinian meal unfolds over 20 to 30 minutes minimum. Multiple small courses arrive sequentially, not all at once. Soup first, then vegetables, then a modest portion of protein, then fruit. Between each course, conversation. Between each bite, wine sipped, not gulped, stories told, opinions debated. This pacing allows the body's satiety signals to work as designed. It takes 15 to 20 minutes for the stomach to tell the brain it's getting full. Eat faster than that and you override the signal. You consume far more than you need before your brain realizes what's happening. Portion sizes here are also naturally smaller. Plates are modest. Servings are reasonable. Seconds are rare. This is cultural norm, not willpower. The abundance mindset that drives American overconsumption simply doesn't exist. Food is appreciated, enjoyed, celebrated, but not worshipped or used as entertainment or consumed mindlessly while staring at screens. The practical effect: Sardinian centenarians consume significantly fewer calories than their American counterparts, while feeling just as satisfied, just as nourished, just as happy with their meals. Moderate caloric restriction is one of the most robust longevity interventions known to science. Studies across dozens of species, yeast, worms, flies, mice, monkeys, show the same pattern. Eat less, live longer. The effect is so consistent, so reproducible, that it's almost boring at this point. The mechanism involves autophagy, the body's process for cleaning up damaged cells and recycling their components. When you eat slightly less than you burn, when your body senses mild energy scarcity, it activates these cellular cleanup programs. It gets more efficient, it repairs more aggressively, it clears out the metabolic garbage that accumulates with age. Caloric restriction also reduces oxidative stress. Every calorie you eat produces some metabolic waste free radicals that damage DNA, proteins, cellular membranes. Eat fewer calories, produce less waste, your cells age slower, your tissues function better longer, and it regulates IGF-1, a growth hormone that's beneficial when you're young but problematic as you age. High IGF-1 in older adults correlates with cancer, heart disease, accelerated aging. Moderate caloric restriction keeps IGF-1 inch, the sweet spot, not too high, not too low. The average Sardinian Centenarian consumes approximately 1,900 to 2,000 calories per day. Compare that to the American average of 2,500 to 3,000. That 500-calorie difference, sustained across decades, creates massive divergence in health outcomes. Not through deprivation or hunger, but simply through eating the right amount, stopping when satisfied, listening to the body, honoring the ancient wisdom of enough. If you could design the optimal human diet from scratch, ignoring culture, ignoring taste preferences, focusing only on nutrition science, you would end up with something very close to what Sardinians have been eating for 3,000 years. The foundation is plants, beans, vegetables, whole grains, not exclusively plants. Sardinians are not vegetarians, but plants dominate. Meat exists as flavoring, as special occasion food, as accent rather than centerpiece. A typical Sardinian plate is 80 to 90% plant-based by volume. Fava beans appear daily, sometimes in soup, sometimes pureed with olive oil and wild fennel, sometimes simply boiled and dressed with lemon. These beans are nutritional powerhouses, high in protein, high in fiber, proven to lower cholesterol. They're also cheap, easy to grow, and store well through winter. Practical and perfect. Pecorino cheese, made from sheep's milk, provides the primary animal protein. But this is not ordinary cheese. The sheep graze on wild grasses and herbs on mountainsides. Their milk is extraordinarily high in omega-3 fatty acids, the same healthy fats found in salmon. A small amount of this cheese delivers huge nutritional benefit. The bread is sourdough pane carousel, called carta di musica because it's thin as sheet music and crackles when you break it. The fermentation process breaks down gluten, increases mineral bioavailability, and creates prebiotic compounds that feed healthy gut bacteria. This is ancient bread, made the way bread was made before industrial yeast and rapid rising. Vegetables come from gardens or mountainsides. Fennel, tomatoes, zucchini, eggplant in season. In spring, people gather wild greens, borage, mallow, wild asparagus plants that grow free and contain nutrient densities cultivated vegetables cannot match. These greens are bitter, mineral-rich, packed with antioxidants. Minestrone soup appears on tables several times per week. But forget the restaurant version with its heavy broth and pasta. Real Sardinian minestrone is vegetables and beans, simmered with olive oil and herbs. It is comfort food and medicine simultaneously. Fregula, a type of Sardinian couscous, hand-rolled and toasted, provides whole-grain satisfaction. It's eaten with simple tomato sauce or mixed with vegetables. Nothing fancy, just good food grown close to home. This is not gourmet cooking. It's peasant food. Food born of scarcity and geography and the need to make the most of what the land provides. But peasant food, it turns out, is exactly what human bodies need to thrive. Break down this diet and the advantages become obvious. The fiber content from beans, whole grains, and vegetables far exceeds what most Americans consume 25 to 35 grams daily versus the American average of 15. This fiber feeds gut bacteria, regulates blood sugar, lowers cholesterol, prevents constipation, reduces colon cancer risk. The antioxidants from vegetables, herbs, and red wine protect cells from oxidative damage. These compounds, polyphenols, flavonoids, carotenoids, act as cellular bodyguards, neutralizing free radicals before they can damage DNA. Healthy fats come from olive oil and pecorino cheese. Monounsaturated fats from olive oil reduce inflammation and support cardiovascular health. Omega-3 seconds from sheep cheese protect brain function and reduce heart disease risk. These fats are consumed daily, but in moderate amounts. Enough for benefit, not enough for harm. Protein comes primarily from beans, supplemented by cheese and occasional meat. This provides all essential amino acids while keeping total protein moderate, not the excessive amounts many Western diets deliver, which can accelerate aging through IGF-1 and mTOR pathway activation. The sourdough fermentation creates compounds that support gut health, stabilize blood sugar, and improve mineral absorption. The slow fermentation also produces acids that preserve the bread naturally, without chemical preservatives. And the mineral-rich well water, drawn from mountain springs filtering through ancient stone, provides calcium, magnesium, and trace minerals often lacking in processed city water. A typical day might include breakfast of bread with olive oil and tomatoes, lunch of minestrone soup with vegetables, dinner of beans, greens, and pecorino. Simple, delicious, perfect. Walk into any Sardinian home around 5 in the afternoon and you'll likely find someone pouring wine, not gulping it desperately after a hard day, not drinking alone to numb feelings, but sharing a glass with family or friends, savoring the ritual, using wine the way humans have used it for thousands of years, as social glue, as stress relief, as small daily pleasure. The wine here is Cannonau, a local red made from Grenache grapes grown in Sardinia's distinctive soil and climate. Chemical analysis shows this wine contains 2 to 3 times the polyphenol content of most other red wines. These antioxidant compounds, particularly resveratrol, protect blood vessels, reduce inflammation, and may even activate longevity genes called sirtuins. But what matters more than the wine itself is how it's consumed. The serving size is small, 3 to 4 ounces, not the generous American pour. It's always consumed with food, never on an empty stomach. The food slows alcohol absorption, reduces blood sugar spikes, and ensures the wine enhances the meal rather than dominating it. And it's always shared. You don't drink alone in Sardinia. You drink with your spouse, with friends, with neighbors. The wine is excuse for conversation, for slowing down, for connecting. It marks the transition from work to rest, from productivity to presence. This is the 5 o'clock ritual. Work ends, wine appears, people gather. The day's stress dissolves in laughter and stories and the gentle warmth of moderate alcohol consumption. It's not about getting drunk. It's about downshifting, about creating a boundary between the demands of the day and the peace of evening. Visit Salvatore's home at 5, and you'll find him pouring Cannonau for the 3 friends who have joined him every single evening for 40 years. They sit on his porch. They talk about soccer, politics, whose grandson is the troublemaker. They sip slowly. They laugh often. They finish 1 glass, maybe 2. Then they go home to dinner. This is preventive medicine disguised as pleasure. The research on moderate alcohol consumption is complex and sometimes contradictory, but certain patterns emerge consistently. 1 to 2 drinks per day, consumed with food and in social settings, correlates with reduced cardiovascular disease, reduced stroke risk, and increased longevity. The benefits disappear and reverse dramatically at higher consumption levels. Resveratrol in red wine activates cellular pathways associated with longevity. It improves endothelial function, keeping blood vessels flexible and healthy. It reduces LDL cholesterol oxidation, preventing the formation of arterial plaques. But here's the critical distinction. Drinking as ritual is not the same as drinking as escape. When wine accompanies food, the alcohol is absorbed slowly. When wine is shared socially, it serves as lubricant for connection rather than numbing agent. When consumption is moderate and consistent, the body adapts beneficially rather than developing tolerance and dependence. Sardinian culture provides natural guardrails. Drinking alone is shameful. Getting drunk is embarrassing. Wine is treated with respect, not as entertainment or medication. The toast salute literally means to your health, and they mean it. The pattern holds across all blue zones. Moderate alcohol, consumed socially, with food, as part of daily ritual. Not prohibition, not excess, but the middle path, the sustainable practice, the way humans have used alcohol for 10,000 years before we industrialized it into poison. None of this means you must drink. Abstaining is fine. But if you do drink, drink like Sardinians. A little, slowly, with others, with joy. Sunday morning in Perdas de Fogo begins with bells. Church bells ringing across the valley, calling people to Mass the way they have for centuries. Nearly everyone goes, not from fear or obligation, but from habit, from tradition, from the understanding that church is not just about God, it's about community. The small stone church fills. Families sit together, 4 generations in one pew. The service is in Italian and Sardinian dialect. The hymns are old, familiar, sung by voices that have sung them 1,000 times. Afterward, people linger in the piazza, talking, catching up, making plans. The religious component is important, yes, but the belonging it creates might matter even more. Belonging in Sardinia extends far beyond religion. It's woven into every institution, every gathering, every tradition. The village festivals that mark saints' days elaborate feasts where entire communities cook together, eat together, dance together until dawn. The harvest celebrations, where neighbors help, neighbors gather olives or grapes, then share the bounty. The weddings and baptisms and funerals that become village-wide events, not private family affairs. The physical spaces here enforce belonging. The piazza is unavoidable. Everyone passes through it multiple times daily. The narrow streets mean you cannot walk without encountering people. The small village size means anonymity is impossible. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone's business is everyone's business. This can feel suffocating to outsiders. But it also means no one is alone, no one is forgotten, no one disappears. The architecture of community here is literal and physical. Buildings face inward toward courtyards and squares, not outward toward streets. Homes have no front yards, creating buffer zones between families. Doorways open directly onto shared spaces. Privacy exists, but it's limited, negotiated, constantly punctuated by encounters. You belong whether you want to or not. And that involuntary belonging, it turns out, saves lives. The data on loneliness is terrifying. Chronic social isolation increases mortality risk by 50%. That's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's worse than obesity. It's worse than physical inactivity. Loneliness literally kills through multiple mechanisms: increased stress hormones, impaired immune function, elevated blood pressure, accelerated cognitive decline, increased inflammation. But the reverse is also true. Strong social connections reduce mortality risk by 50%. They cut depression rates. They protect cognitive function into extreme old age. They speed recovery from illness and injury. They even reduce pain perception. The brain processes physical pain differently when you feel socially connected. Belonging provides emotional support during crisis. When something bad happens, illness, death, financial trouble, the community responds automatically. People show up, they bring food, they help with children or chores, they sit with you so you're not alone. This practical and emotional support buffers stress, preventing it from becoming chronic and destructive. Belonging also provides accountability. Your neighbors notice if you stop walking to market. Your friends ask questions if you start gaining weight or looking depressed. The community gently enforces healthy behavior simply through observation and concern. And belonging creates identity and meaning. You are not just an individual. You are part of something larger, member of a village, link in a chain stretching back centuries. This identity provides existential security that isolated individuals never experience. In Sardinia, you cannot age alone. The community will not allow it. And that might be the most powerful longevity intervention of all. In America, success often means moving away from family, getting your own apartment, building your independent life, putting aging parents in facilities when they need care. We value autonomy over connection, independence over interdependence, and we pay for it with loneliness, isolation, and shorter lives. In Sardinia, family is everything. Multi-generational homes are not fallback plans or signs of economic failure. They are the default, the expectation, the preferred arrangement. Grandparents live with adult children and grandchildren, sometimes great-grandchildren, 3, 4, even 5 generations under one roof or in adjacent homes. This benefits everyone involved in ways that statistics barely capture. The elders stay mentally engaged through constant interaction. They can't vegetate or withdraw because children are always asking questions, needing help, demanding attention. Their brains stay active. Their days have structure and meaning. They are not waiting to die. They are actively participating in life. The middle generation receives invaluable support. Grandparents provide childcare, allowing parents to work without guilt or astronomical daycare costs. They teach children family recipes, traditional stories, cultural values that would otherwise be lost. They offer wisdom accumulated across decades, perspective on problems, advice on relationships, calm presence during crisis. The children grow up knowing their great-grandparents as real people, not distant figures seen on holidays. They learn respect for elders through daily interaction. They understand continuity, heritage, their place in a chain of generations. They see aging as natural, as something to embrace rather than fear. They learn that people remain valuable their entire lives. The financial benefits are obvious. Shared housing costs, shared meal costs, built-in childcare, built-in elderly care. But the emotional benefits matter more. No one is alone. No one is abandoned. No one feels useless or burdensome. The family operates as unit, as team, as organism where every member contributes according to their capacity. Yes, it requires compromise. Yes, it means less privacy, less independence, more obligation. But it also means more connection, more support, more love. And apparently, judging by Sardinian longevity data, the trade-off is worth it. The research on institutional elderly care is damning. Nursing home residents show accelerated cognitive decline compared to those aging in family settings. Depression rates are 3 to 4 times higher. Physical function deteriorates faster. Life expectancy drops measurably. Why? Because humans are not designed to age in institutions. We're designed to age in families, in communities, surrounded by people who know our stories and value our presence. We're designed to stay useful, stay needed, stay relevant until the very end. The phrase you hear constantly in Sardinia, "We don't abandon our old ones," not as moral statement, not as virtue signal, just as fact, as description of how things work, as an explanation of why a 100-year-old woman still lives with her grandson and helps watch her great-great-grandchildren several days a week. She cannot do much anymore, cannot cook full meals or clean the house, but she can hold babies, she can sing lullabies, she can be present, be available, be the steady, loving presence that children need, and doing so keeps her alive, keeps her engaged, keeps her human. Health behaviors are socially contagious. If your friends are obese, your risk of obesity increases by 57%. If your friends smoke, you're more likely to smoke. If your friends are sedentary, you're more likely to be sedentary. The social network you inhabit shapes your behaviors more powerfully than your individual willpower or knowledge. The reverse is also true. If your friends exercise regularly, you're more likely to exercise. If they eat healthy food, you're more likely to eat healthy food. If they value family and community over consumption and status, those values influence you whether you realize it or not. In Sardinia, your tribe, your social circle reinforces longevity at every turn. Your friends walk together daily. You walk. Your friends share simple, plant-based meals. You eat similarly. Your friends don't overconsume alcohol or food. Neither do you. Your friends value elders and maintain traditions. You do too. Your friends support each other through crisis. You support and are supported. There's a circle of 5 men in Perdas de Fogo who have met every single day for 60 years. Every day. They sit at the same table in the piazza, play the same card games, argue about the same topics, laugh at the same jokes. They are in their 80s and 90s now, all of them still meeting, still talking, still engaged with life. They have witnessed each other's entire adult existence, marriages, children, grandchildren, losses, triumphs, sorrows. They know each other completely. And that knowledge, that shared history, that absolute reliability of presence, it sustains them. The social norms in these villages become personal habits without conscious effort. You walk daily because everyone walks daily. You eat slowly because everyone eats slowly. You prioritize family because everyone prioritizes family. You participate in village life because opting out isn't really an option. The current is so strong, the pattern so clear, that individual deviation becomes difficult. This is the Moai concept from Okinawa, adapted to Sardinian culture. A committed social circle that meets regularly, supports each other, and enforces positive norms, not through judgment or criticism, but through example, through expectation, through the simple power of "this is how we do things here." You cannot control your family, cannot change your blood relatives, but you can influence, even choose, your friend circle. And given that social networks shape longevity more than genetics, this choice matters enormously. Look for relationships that support health, friends who suggest walks instead of drinks, who cook meals instead of ordering delivery, who listen during hard times instead of enabling bad habits, who challenge you to grow instead of accepting comfortable stagnation. Red flags include people who regularly complain without acting, who enable destructive behaviors, who create drama, who take more than they give. These relationships drain energy and shorten life. Green flags include mutual support, healthy modeling, genuine care, reliable presence, shared values, constructive challenge. These relationships energize and extend life. If you don't have a tribe, you can build one. Join groups aligned with your interests, walking groups, gardening clubs, volunteer organizations. Show up consistently, invest in people, be the reliable one. Over time, relationships deepen. Quality matters far more than quantity. Even one close, positive relationship reduces mortality risk significantly. Virtual community has value but cannot fully replace in-person connection. The physical presence, the shared activities, the hugs and handshakes and eye contact, these matter biologically. Build local tribe first, supplement with virtual community if needed. The goal? Surround yourself with people who make healthy living easier, who support your best self, who will notice if you disappear and come looking for you. Here's what matters most. These 9 principles are not additive, they're multiplicative. Each one amplifies the effects of the others, creating synergistic benefits that exceed what any single intervention could achieve. Watch how they cascade. You move naturally by walking to the market. While walking, you encounter neighbors. Connection deepens. Belonging increases. Your social tribe reinforces healthy eating. You cook at home using plants from your garden. Working the garden provides purpose and movement. You share meals with family. Loved ones come first. During meals, you drink moderate wine socially. Stress downshifts. You sleep better. Better sleep improves everything else. Or another cascade. You identify your purpose. Purpose involves teaching grandchildren traditional skills. Teaching requires presence and energy. Energy comes from good diet. Good diet comes from cooking at home with your tribe. Tribe activities include walking and gardening. Movement keeps you functional. Functionality allows continued purpose. The loop reinforces itself. No single factor is sufficient. You cannot exercise your way past terrible diet and isolation. You cannot eat perfectly while remaining sedentary and lonely. You cannot rely on social connection while ignoring stress and purpose. The system requires all components working together. This is why blue zones exist as zones, not as scattered individuals. The entire community practices all 9 principles simultaneously, creating an environment where longevity becomes default rather than exception. The culture embeds the principles so deeply that conscious effort is unnecessary. You simply live the way everyone around you lives, and everyone around you lives long. Trying to cherry-pick favorite principles while ignoring others will fail. Modern wellness culture loves this mistake, taking the supplement equivalent approach to lifestyle. I'll take the movement pill and the diet pill, but skip the community pill because people are annoying. It doesn't work. The synergies matter. The interactions matter. The whole pattern matters. Let's be honest. You cannot become Sardinian. Cannot move to a mountain village. Cannot join a shepherd culture that may not exist in 20 years. Cannot recreate centuries-old social bonds in a world of mobility and screens. But you can adopt the pattern, can understand the principles, can build your own version adapted to modern life, to your specific circumstances, to your particular constraints. The principles are transferable. Movement can be built into modern life through deliberate choices. Purpose can be cultivated at any age through contribution and teaching. Stress can be managed through daily rituals and boundaries. Diet can shift toward plants and away from processing. Moderate pleasure, wine or otherwise, can mark transition from work to rest. Community can be found or created through consistent participation. Family can be prioritized through choices about time and proximity. Tribe can be selected and cultivated. What's cultural versus universal? The specific foods are cultural. The preference for plants is universal. The shepherd lifestyle is cultural. The need for natural movement is universal. The multigenerational household is cultural. The importance of Family connection is universal. You start where you are. You don't try to change everything at once. You focus on the principle that feels most accessible, most necessary, most aligned with your current life. You practice it until it becomes automatic. Then you add another, then another. Small changes compound over years and decades. You're not trying to transform overnight. You're designing a life, your life, not copying theirs, but learning from theirs, taking their blueprint and adapting it to your blueprint. The invitation is not to abandon modernity. It's to remember what modernity forgot and then rebuild it, piece by piece, principle by principle, day by patient day. For 50 years, something has been dying in these mountains. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, steadily, like a photograph left too long in sunlight, the colors fading, until one day you realize what was once vibrant has become pale, ghostly, barely recognizable. The numbers tell the story with brutal clarity. Perdastafogu, once home to 2,000 souls, now counts barely 1,600. Talana has shrunk from 1,200 to 1,000. Arzana, which once bustled with 3,000 residents, now struggles to maintain 2,400. These aren't just statistics. These are families, bloodlines, centuries of accumulated wisdom walking out the door with suitcases and one-way tickets to Cagliari, to Rome, to Germany, to lives that promise more and deliver less. The schools are closing. First the high schools, forcing teenagers to commute an hour each way or board in regional centers. Then the middle schools. Now some villages debate whether they can keep elementary schools open with only a dozen children. The playgrounds sit empty. The classrooms echo. The future, quite literally, has left the building. Walk through these villages and you'll see shops shuttered, windows dark, hand-painted signs faded to illegibility. The bakery that operated for 4 generations closed when the last grandson moved to Milan. The butcher shop that once anchored the village square now sells to tourists on weekends only. The cafe where shepherds gathered every morning for espresso and argument now opens late, closes early, struggles to break even, and the shepherds themselves are disappearing. The average age is now 68 years. 68. Men who should be considering retirement are the young ones in this profession. The old ones are in their 80s and 90s, still walking these mountains because no one else will. They have few apprentices. Their sons became engineers, teachers, accountants. Their grandsons work in offices, stare at screens, will never know the feel of wool between their fingers or the smell of sheep at dawn. What dies when the last shepherd retires? Not just a job, not just a skill set, but an entire relationship with land, with animal, with mountain. The natural activity pattern that kept men healthy into their hundreds. The purposeful solitude that protected mental health. The rhythm of seasons that structured time. The embodied knowledge that cannot be written down, how to read weather in clouds, how to find water in drought, how to move 1,000 sheep across rock without losing one. Modernity arrived late to these mountains, but it arrived. And it brought gifts that felt like progress but functioned like poison. The supermarket in the regional center now stocks everything. Chips, sodas, pre-packaged meals in plastic containers, frozen pizzas, breakfast cereals marketed to children with cartoon characters and sugar content that would horrify traditional grandmothers. The convenience is undeniable. Why bake bread for 3 hours when you can buy it already sliced? Why shell beans for an afternoon when they come in cans? Why preserve tomatoes in summer when the store sells them year-round? Fast food has arrived. Not McDonald's yet, but regional chains serving American-style hamburgers, fried chicken, Pizza by the slice. Young people eat there. It's cheap. It's fast. It's what their friends in the city eat. Tradition feels old-fashioned, slow, uncool. Convenience replaces ritual. Speed replaces meaning. And the diseases follow. Type 2 diabetes, virtually unknown here a generation ago, now appears in medical records with alarming frequency. Obesity in children and young adults, once non-existent, now approaches Western averages. Cardiovascular disease, which used to spare these mountain people into extreme old age, now strikes earlier, harder, without the mercy it once showed. Screen time replaces FaceTime. Teenagers scroll through Instagram instead of sitting in the piazza. Families watch television during dinner instead of talking. The passeggiata still happens, but fewer participate, especially the young. Why walk when you can drive? Why gather when you can text? Cars dominate where feet once ruled. Every family has at least one now. The 2-mile walk to market becomes a 5-minute drive. The natural movement that once sustained life becomes optional, then rare, then forgotten. Bodies that were designed to walk mountains now sit in vehicles, in offices, on couches. The landscape hasn't changed, but the relationship to it has. And the homes are dividing, not physically, but emotionally. Multi-generational living persists in some families, but the younger generation resents it. They want privacy, they want independence. They want their own apartments, their own lives, free from the scrutiny and obligation of elders always present. Some are moving out. Some are building separate entrances, separate kitchens, separate lives under the same roof. The proximity remains, the connection fractures. The question haunts every conversation about Sardinia's blue zone. Can these places survive modernity? Can longevity persist when the lifestyle that created it erodes? Or will these villages become museums, curiosities, places tourists visit to see how people used to live, used to eat, used to age, used to thrive? When the last traditional bread maker stops baking, we lose more than bread. We lose the recipe, yes, passed down through memory, adjusted by feel, perfect in ways that written measurements can never capture. But we also lose the daily ritual, the pre-dawn rising, the meditative kneading, the smell that called neighbors to gather. We lose the social glue of sharing, the currency of caring, the way bread connected households across generations. Maria is 89 now. She has baked bread every day for 73 years, but she hasn't taught anyone. Her daughter prefers store-bought. Her granddaughter doesn't eat carbs. When Maria dies, her knowledge dies with her. The feel of properly kneaded dough, the sound of an oven reaching perfect temperature, the sight of crust that signals ideal baking. These things cannot be written in cookbooks or captured in YouTube videos. They live in hands, in instinct, in accumulated wisdom that takes decades to develop and disappears in an instant. Multiply this by every tradition, every skill, every piece of embodied knowledge. How to read weather in mountain air, the smell of rain 3 hours before it arrives, the feel of wind that signals storm, the color of sunset that predicts tomorrow's temperature. How to make pecorino cheese from memory, no thermometer, no timer, just knowledge carried in the body. How to raise children in community, not with manuals or experts, but through shared responsibility, collective wisdom, the way humans did for 200,000 years before we isolated ourselves in nuclear families. The urgency is real. Researchers estimate some of these villages have 10 to 15 years before they reach critical mass failure. The point where population declines so far that community structures collapse, where too few young people remain to maintain traditions, where the blue zone effect disappears not gradually but suddenly, catastrophically. We should preserve this, document it, study it, honor it. But how do you preserve something that exists not in objects, but in practice? Something that lives in daily habits, in relationships, in the space between people? You cannot put it in a museum. You cannot freeze it in time. It either continues being lived or it dies. And it is dying. Slowly, beautifully, tragically, while the rest of the world, drowning in lifestyle diseases and premature death, barely notices that the instruction manual for human longevity is burning page by irreplaceable page. But here is the hope. Not everything about Sardinian longevity is locked to Sardinia. Some things belong to this specific place, this specific culture, this specific history. Those things we cannot transplant. But other things, the core principles, the fundamental patterns, those can travel, those can adapt, those can save lives anywhere. What must stay in Sardinia? You cannot recreate these mountain villages in suburban America, cannot mandate that everyone live in dense, walkable communities where privacy is scarce and connection is constant, cannot force multi-generational households on cultures that value independence above almost everything else, cannot resurrect shepherd culture in a world that has industrialized food production beyond recognition. The specifics are bound to place, to history, to choices made centuries ago that cannot be unmade. But the universals, those you can take anywhere. Natural movement does not require mountains. It requires only willingness to build activity into life's architecture instead of scheduling it separately. You can walk to nearby errands, take stairs, garden instead of hiring landscapers, stand at your desk, play actively with children, carry groceries, clean your own house. Every culture, every location, every life offers opportunities for movement if you choose to see them. Purpose does not require shepherding or traditional crafts. It requires only contribution, only mattering, only being needed. You can cultivate purpose at any age through teaching, mentoring, volunteering, creating, caring for others. Purpose is not what you do, but why you do it. And that why can exist anywhere. Stress management does not require the Mediterranean climate or afternoon siestas embedded in cultural practice. It requires only recognition that stress left unmanaged will kill you, followed by commitment to daily practices that release it: meditation, prayer, walking, hobbies, Sabbath. Whatever works for you, practiced consistently, is enough. Plant-forward eating works in any culture. Beans grow almost everywhere. Vegetables grow almost everywhere. Whole grains are available almost everywhere. You do not need Sardinian fava beans, or Cannonau wine, or Carta di Musica bread. You need plants as foundation, meat as accent, food prepared simply and eaten slowly. The specifics vary. The pattern holds. Community can be intentionally created even in fragmented modern societies. You can join groups, attend regularly, invest in relationships, show up for people. You can build the social infrastructure that supports health even when geography doesn't provide it automatically. It's harder, it requires more intention, but it's possible. Family can be prioritized through choices about time, about proximity, about what matters. You may not live in multi-generational households, but you can call parents weekly, visit grandchildren regularly, choose jobs that allow family time over jobs that pay slightly more. Family connection is choice as much as circumstance. Belonging can be found in churches, clubs, neighborhoods, organizations. Humans have created belonging structures for millennia across every culture. The forms vary, the need is universal. You can plug into existing communities or build new ones. Either way works. The right tribe can be selected and cultivated. You may not have control over your birth family or your co-workers, but you have enormous control over who you spend discretionary time with, whose behaviors influence you, whose values shape your own. Choose wisely. Invest deeply. Guard these relationships carefully. The principles transfer. The location is optional. The beautiful thing about science is that it tests hypotheses, and researchers have tested blue zone principles in decidedly non-blue zone locations with remarkable results. Albert Lea, Minnesota, became a laboratory. Dan Buettner and his team worked with city officials to implement blue zone principles systematically. They added bike lanes and walking paths. They helped restaurants offer healthier options. They facilitated walking groups and social organizations. They worked with employers to encourage movement and stress reduction. Nothing dramatic. No one was forced to change. Just systematic optimization toward longevity principles. Results. Participants added an estimated 3 years to life expectancy. Healthcare costs dropped. Obesity rates declined. But more importantly, self-reported happiness and life satisfaction increased. People weren't just living longer, they were living better. Similar projects in small California beach towns, in retirement communities, in workplace wellness programs show the same pattern. Systematic application of all 9 principles works. Partial adoption helps. But cherry-picking favorite principles while ignoring others produces modest results at best. The evidence is overwhelming. Even when you cannot replicate Sardinian culture, even when you cannot move to a blue zone, even when you start with terrible genetics and decades of unhealthy habits, adopting these principles extends both lifespan and health span. The gains might not match Sardinia's centenarian rates, but adding 5, 7, 10 healthy years to your life, years where you remain active, engaged, functional, is worth pursuing. And the health span improvements exceed the lifespan gains. People report feeling better, moving easier, thinking clearer, connecting deeper. They describe not just living longer, but living better in the years they have. This might matter more than the raw numbers. Quality versus quantity, function versus mere survival, the ability to play with grandchildren at 70 versus watching from a chair, the choice between being present at 90 or being present in body only, mind already gone. So, audit your life, honestly, without judgment but without mercy. Rate yourself 1 to 10 on each principle. Move naturally. How much do you actually move? Do you have clear reason for being? Downshift. Do you manage stress daily or let it accumulate? 80% rule. Do you stop before full? Plant slant. Do plants dominate your diet? Wine at 5. Do you have healthy rituals for decompression? Are you part of genuine community? Loved ones first. Do you prioritize family? Right, tribe. Do your closest relationships support health? Most people score high on 1 or 2, mediocre on several, terrible on the rest. That's normal. That's okay. That's your starting point, not your judgment. Start with lowest hanging fruit, the principle that feels most accessible, most immediately applicable, most aligned with your current life. Focus there for 1 month, make it automatic, then add another principle, then another. Stack principles that reinforce each other. Movement plus belonging equals walking group. Plant slant plus loved ones first equals family cooking. Purpose plus right tribe equals volunteering with friends. Track not just lifespan, but quality of life. Energy, mood, connection, meaning. These matter more than the date on your tombstone. This isn't a diet, it's life redesign. And it starts now. Here is the central revelation, the thesis that changes everything. Principles matter more than place. You do not need to move to Sardinia to live like Sardinia. You need only to understand what Sardinians do, why it works, and how to adapt it to your specific life, your specific circumstances, your specific constraints. You can start today, right now, this moment. Walk somewhere instead of driving. Even once, even if it's inconvenient. Walk to the coffee shop. Walk to a friend's house. Walk around your block. Movement is movement. Begin. Eat dinner with family or friends tonight, not in front of a screen, not rushed between obligations, but sitting together, talking, sharing food and time and presence. Connection is connection. Practice it. Call someone you haven't talked to in months. A parent, a sibling, an old friend who crossed your mind yesterday but you didn't reach out. Make the call. Have the conversation. Belonging begins with one person caring about one other person. Start there. Define your purpose in one sentence. Write it down. I am here to, and finish that sentence honestly. Your reason for being. What you contribute. What would be lost if you disappeared tomorrow? Don't overthink it. Just answer. Purpose crystallized is purpose actionable. Plant something, anything. One tomato plant in a pot, basil on a windowsill, a garden bed if you have space. The act of growing food connects you to seasons, to soil, to something beyond yourself. And the movement required attended bending, watering, harvesting builds health automatically. These are small actions, trivial on their own, but compounded across days, weeks, years, decades, they transform lives. They extend lives. They make lives worth extending. Consider transformations already happening. Robert, 65, started a walking group in his retirement community. 5 people showed up first week. 25 show up now. They walk 3 miles 3 times per week. They've become friends. They support each other through illness and loss. Several have lost significant weight. All report feeling younger, stronger, happier. One walking group. One man's initiative. Or the Martinez family who restored Sunday dinners. No phones, no television, just cooking together, eating together, talking together. Their teenagers resisted at first, but now invite friends. The dinners have become legendary, something their kids will remember and recreate with their own families someday. Or Janet, 72, retired and aimless, who started mentoring teen girls through a local nonprofit. She's good at it. The girls adore her. She wakes up every Tuesday excited to meet with them. Purpose found. Life extended. Here are the specific actions, the practical steps, the tactical blueprint for building longevity into your actual life. Move naturally. Ditch convenience ruthlessly. Walk or bike for any errand under 2 miles. Take stairs, always make it non-negotiable. Garden instead of landscaping. If you have yard space, grow something, anything. Stand at your desk or while talking on phone. Do your own housework. Carry your own groceries. Make movement unavoidable by building it into your environment. Write your reason for being today. One clear sentence. Then live toward it. Volunteer using skills you've spent lifetime developing. Teach someone something you know well. Mentor younger people in your profession or community. Commit to growth, not decline. Decide now that you will never be done. Never retire from contribution. Never stop mattering. Schedule a 15-minute pause every single day. Non-negotiable. Meditation, prayer, sitting outside, whatever works. Practice one stress release ritual consistently: evening walk, Sunday Sabbath, daily tea time. Protect sleep like life depends on it, because it does. 7 to 9 hours nightly. Say no to non-essentials without guilt. Your time is finite. Guard it. 80% rule. Use smaller plates immediately. Buy them today if needed. Eat every meal slowly, minimum 30 minutes. No exceptions. Put fork down between bites. Converse. Pause. Stop when no longer hungry, not when full. Learn the difference. Keep temptation foods out of house entirely. If it's not there, you cannot eat it impulsively. Eat beans every single day. Find ways you enjoy them. Vegetables fill half your plate at lunch and dinner. Whole grains replace refined grains in everything. Meat becomes garnish 2 to 3 times per week maximum. Small portions. Cook at home 80% of meals. This one habit changes everything. Wine at 5. If you drink, do it socially and moderately only. With food, with people, daily ritual, not weekend excess. If you don't drink, find other daily decompression ritual. The point is not alcohol, but transition from work to rest, stress to peace, doing to being. Mark that transition intentionally. Belong. Join one community group aligned with your interests or values. Attend regularly, weekly minimum. Miss rarely. Consistency creates relationships. Invest in these people. Learn their stories. Share yours. Show up when it's inconvenient. Be someone others can count on. Find your village even if you must create it. Loved ones first. Schedule family time weekly, minimum. Put it on calendar like any important meeting. Call aging parents or grandparents at least weekly. Involve children in your actual life, not parallel entertainment. Do things together, not separately in the same house. Be present mentally, not just physically. Put away devices during family time. Assess inner circle honestly. Spend more time with people who lift you. Support healthy choices, model behavior you admire. Reduce time with toxic people, enablers of bad habits, energy vampires. Actively seek healthy-minded people through activities and communities. Your social circle shapes your future more than your willpower ever will. Commit to 30 days, 1 month, 4 weeks. Not forever, just 30 days. That's manageable, that's testable, that's a time frame where you can see results. Choose 3 principles to focus on. Not all 9, that's overwhelming. 3. Pick the ones that feel most essential, most accessible, most aligned with your current life. Maybe move naturally, plant slant, and belong. Or purpose, downshift, and right tribe. Your choice. Here are 3. Track daily in a journal. Nothing elaborate, just 3 entries every evening. What you did, how you felt, what changed. Did you walk instead of drive? Write it down. Did you eat vegetables at every meal? Record it. Did you attend your community group? Note it. The tracking creates accountability and reveals patterns you'd otherwise miss. Share the journey with an accountability partner. Friend, spouse, sibling, co-worker, someone who will ask how you're doing, who will notice if you quit, who will encourage when motivation wanes. Social accountability works. Use it. After 30 days, assess honestly what worked, what didn't, what felt sustainable versus unsustainable, what improved energy, mood, sleep, relationships, meaning. Then adjust. Add more principles gradually. Refine practices that work. Abandon what doesn't fit your life. Goal: integrate all 9 principles within 6 months. But remember, Sardinians didn't try to integrate principles. They just lived. The practices were invisible, automatic, cultural defaults. You're creating new defaults, new automaticity, new culture within your own life. It takes time. It requires patience. It works. This is not a quick fix, not a life hack, not a 30-day transformation that permanently changes everything. Those promises are lies. Sardinian centenarians made small choices every single day for 100 years. They walked when walking was hard. They ate simply when abundance tempted. They stayed connected when isolation would have been easier. They maintained purpose when retirement whispered rest. They did this daily, yearly, decade after decade, until the choices became identity, until longevity became inevitable. You are not trying to live to 100, though you might. You are trying to live well for however many years you have, quality over quantity, function over mere survival. The goal is not the oldest gravestone in the cemetery, but healthy, purposeful, connected years. To be needed at 80, to be active at 90, to be engaged until the end, to look back with satisfaction, not regret, to have loved deeply, contributed meaningfully, connected authentically. Every day is a vote for the life you want at 80, 90, 100. Every meal, every walk, every conversation, every choice. The life you're living today is the life you'll inhabit in old age, magnified. Choose accordingly. Return with me to that mountain, to that shepherd rising with the sun, to those footsteps on ancient paths. Remember? We opened with wonder, an old man walking, body bent but not broken, breath soft but not faded. Now we understand what we're seeing. Not just habit born of necessity, not just routine repeated mindlessly, but conscious unconsciousness. Life designed for longevity so carefully, so completely, that the design becomes invisible. The walking is not exercise, it is purpose made physical. The rhythm is not survival, it is thriving distilled into daily practice. The mountain remembers everyone who walks it. Every shepherd across 3,000 years has left imprint, has added footstep to path, has joined the ancient conversation between human and stone. And everyone who walks the mountain remembers who they are. Not doctor, lawyer, teacher, retiree, but human, embodied, alive, connected to something that existed before them and will exist after. Sardinia offers proof. Longevity is possible. Humans can live well past 100 while remaining active, sharp, engaged, happy. But Sardinia also offers instruction. Here is how. 9 principles, 9 patterns, 9 choices repeated until they become not choices but life itself. The choice is ours. We cannot control our genetics entirely, but we control 75% of longevity factors. We cannot guarantee 100 years, but we can guarantee better years. Every day is a vote. Every meal, every walk, every connection, every moment of purpose. You are building your future self right now, whether intentionally or accidentally. The Sardinian toast echoes across mountains, a cantanos to your 100 years. But the full blessing is more. May those years be full of purpose. May they overflow with companionship. May they ring with laughter. May they be seasoned with meaning. May they be bound by love. Start today. Start now. The mountain is waiting, and the next 100 years are yours to shape.